All right, good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Planning Board and valued community representatives, I welcome you all to this evening's assembly of the Saco Planning Board. As chairman, it is my privilege to convene this gathering dedicated to the thoughtful planning and development of our community. Today, we come together with a shared commitment to shaping the future of our city in a manner that reflects our values, respects our heritage, and fulfills the needs of our residents both now and in the future. Our agenda tonight contains important matters, each requiring our careful consideration, expertise, and collaboration. From zoning ordinances to development proposals, infrastructure to environmental concerns, every item on our agenda holds a significance in sculpting the landscape and character of our community. As we engage in our deliberations, let us remember the profound impact these decisions will have on the lives of all, keeping in mind we are residents like you. It is our duty to maintain transparency, fairness, and inclusivity in our proceedings, ensuring that voices of all are heard and respected. Together, we must embrace the responsibilities entrusted to us by our community, working diligently and thoughtfully to chart a course that fosters growth, prosperity, and harmony. With that, I would like to call this meeting of Tuesday, August 13th, 2024, the Saco Planning Board to order. I look forward to the productive discussions and meaningful outcomes that lie ahead. Thank you. With that, this evening we have myself, Matt Provenzel, the chairman. To my left, our vice chair, Joyce Larry Clark. And to her left, our planning board member, Jeff Brucho. And to my right, Carrie Lynn Lane, Jim Moyer, and Matt DiCiani, along with our planning staff members, Lisa Harmon and Emily Cole Prescott, our planner, and Phil Hatch, our city council liaison from Ward 5. And with that, we'll move into our first item on the agenda, which is the approval of our minutes from July 29th, 2024. Do board members have any questions, comments, or edits from those minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Jeff, yes.
I had one question with regards to, I think it's on the bottom of page 2 to the start of page 3. It said discussion approval will include the fee being paid in lieu of the sidewalk. And it was a vote of 4-2. And I was just wondering, were you, Mr. Chair, the one who voted as well in negative, or was it Matt D?
It was myself, yes.
Okay, I thought my notes were different. Thank you.
Yep.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve the draft minutes of the meeting of July 29th, 2024.
I would second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion? Those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented? Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. With that, we will move to our next item on the agenda this evening. This is our public comment period. This is an opportunity for any members of the public to come before the board and speak to any non-specific agenda items and ask questions. We'll limit this to 15 minutes, but if anybody from the public would like to come up and speak, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And we'll go from there.
Good evening. My name is Inga Brown. I live at 161 Simpson Road. I want to thank the Planning Board for adopting into its standard operating procedures this general public comments period. It's been a long time coming, and I know I and many other people deeply appreciate it. I am going to make some general comments this evening in this general comment, public comment period, but I am going to make one specific comment now related to an item on your agenda, and I'm doing that because I want to make sure that I get this in before the Planning Board finds 20 Bayview Road complete in its application this evening. So just very quickly, if you bear with me, related to that application, this is item B, 20 Bayview Road, conditional use review. In your packet, in the public packet, the planner has a planning department memo. It's only 1.5 pages long, it's very brief. And in that memo, there are some departmental review items. The first is the fire department. Deputy Chief Pendleton had no comments or concerns. The Water Resource Recovery Department reviewed the application materials and found them to be approved as presented. And then the Public Works Department, it says, the city engineer, Joe Leverrier, requested additional information to which the applicant responded. And I'm not exactly sure why tonight with this public hearing, that memo by Mr. Leverrier is not included in the packet for review, along with the applicant's responses. So I do find that remiss. Thank you for that. My general comments this evening, this will be redundant for, I think, Councillor Hatch, who's the your liaison, but also at the council level. I've attended the last 2 council meetings. One was a workshop item on the contract zone ordinance revision, and the last item on the 5th was a first new business. I'm very excited about the contract zone ordinance revision that's occurring. There's going to be, as you perhaps are well aware, more of a standard operating procedure for contract zone applications. There will be a contract zone database created, and I think staff is working super hard to streamline the process and to make sure that it's in good shape. One thing that I want to bring to your attention, because it does apply to the planning board, contract zones, as you know, are an amendment to the zoning ordinance. That's why council reviews them. They are a legislative act. The ordinance is being amended or changed, and thereby council must review a contract zone. Comes to you for a site plan. Can't have a contract zone without a site plan. Those 2 items are inextricably linked. When a contract zone holder, recipient, comes back to you for a site plan amendment, an amendment perhaps for another building, an amendment to perhaps an operational change, and if you approve that, that site plan amendment must return to the council for their legislative adoption of that site plan amendment. Those amendments are in harmony, must be in harmony with the contract zone agreement. We have many contract zone agreements that have come for site plan amendment to you, the planning board, and those changes, those approvals, do not get added by the council to the contract zone agreement so that everybody knows exactly what's happening on this property. Those 2 documents should reflect each other. I'm going to hold back there, and I'll wait for the actual public hearing to open tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Archer, 185 Bradley Street. As always, and as a former ZORS appointee, I remain dedicated and committed to due process, full disclosure, compliance, and accountability. I am speaking towards and prior to 20 Bayview's application completeness review and public hearing, and not on the proposal itself. Upon reading the staff's review memo packet, I personally believe this application is incomplete for your informed decision tonight and should be tabled until you receive such information by requesting staff to provide the city engineers requested additional information to which the applicant responded, and to provide the traffic peer review document within a future official packet, not simply stating is underway. The board and the public need to review such written supporting documents within the official packet prior to a completeness review and a public hearing, not at a last minute or oversight or after a public hearing has closed. How does that serve any of us, those here on video or from the website? What suggestions or requests could you have asked of the applicant for completeness if you don't have those reviews? What's the traffic impact? How can one vote for completeness of application when vital information is needed to make an informed decision about completeness? How can the public now comment on missing information? And even if some questions can be answered, all those participants, city engineer, applicant, and traffic peer reviewer, are not present for their testimony, except for the applicant. This application should not move forward until staff provides a completed application packet with all supporting documents necessary for one to make an informed decision with one's vote. I would also request that you ask, who is the traffic peer reviewer on this application? Why isn't their name included in the packet like the department heads? As some of you may know, citizens do have an issue with certain professionals who have steadfastly came before you but did not address or adhere to state laws, even after stakeholders repeatedly advocated for the city to comply with to no avail, which led them to a citizen appeal and state rescission of his traffic permit. Do you believe this application is complete for your informed decision? Will you continue the public hearing when the public is not fully informed prior to their testimony? Thank you for your due diligence.
Thank you. All right, not seeing any other members of the public stepping forward, we will move to our next item on the agenda. Item number 5A is our public hearing guidelines, and that is posted in the document package for every planning board meeting that we have here. And Emily's pulled that up on the screen here. And with that, we will move to our next item, 5B. This is 20 Bayview Road, map 4, lot 44. This is a conditional use review for a farm stand to support flower sales. The applicant is Robin Stickney, and this is an application of completeness review and a public hearing. And this is in the low-density residential zoning district. Emily?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am hopeful that at one point soon, if there's concerns on applications, that we can have a discussion about it. So I'm looking forward to having a discussion about this tonight. So this is 20 Bayview Road. This came to us as a farm stand application. There's already flower sales at the site. There's already landscaping going on at the site in support of flower sales. That work that's already happening, we are considering agriculture. Agriculture is a permitted use in the low-density residential district. What's before you tonight is a request for a 112-square-foot farm stand to sell flowers at this person's residence. So she lives at the property. She doesn't own the property. Robin Stickney is the applicant. We've included some information on what a conditional use is. There was some concern that this was perhaps a variance. So just for clarity, this is not a variance. This is a conditional use. By falling under the conditional use category, the applicant can agree to certain conditions and restrictions that would only make this use available for the property in this way. And if it expands in the future, the requirement is that they would need to come back before the board. That's kind of the point of a conditional use. So we look at conditional uses a lot through this board, so this is similar to what we've done in previous applications. It's just there's no site plan attached to this one. It does not qualify for a site plan review. We have scheduled this tonight for a public hearing because we talked with the board a few months ago and agreed that if an application did not qualify for a neighborhood meeting, it could be scheduled for a public hearing and application completeness review in one evening. So we have noticed the public to let them know about this application. We have received and submitted to you all in the packet the public comment materials, so we appreciate the residents looking at the materials and getting back to us. The applicant has also provided supplemental information, which is available in the after-the-fact meeting packet, along with some additional correspondence we received as copies. Nobody's leaving anything out as far as the application materials. It's common that when we have a traffic peer review underway, it'll be in front of you at the next board meeting. Clearly, you're not asked to make any decision on this application tonight because staff did not provide any findings of fact. So we didn't want to cut off the opportunity for the public to make comment on this application and then give the applicant and the board the opportunity to discuss those comments and allow the applicant to respond to those comments from what you'll hear tonight, I'm sure. As far as the city engineer's review, he did not present a formal memo. He provided it during an iWork review on internal comments. I can share with you exactly what it said, but he asked the applicant to provide a sketch, which the applicant did do in response, and it has been included in your meeting packet. And as far as traffic information, the traffic peer reviewer is reviewing this. We've reviewed other applications before where we haven't had the peer reviews completed in front of us. So I would encourage you to hear from the members of the public this evening, determine whether the application is complete before you open the hearing, and then, of course, you can always continue the hearing in receipt of those materials, as well as, if you're ready, have us draft any findings of fact and conditions, just like we'd review any other application. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Board members, any questions for Emily at this time? I had one, Emily. What is the current official use of the property? I've heard a few terms here. Is there a residence on the property, or is it a single-family use property, or is it an agricultural, excluding livestock use on the property?
It's
How is
a
that?
single-family home where the applicant lives, and she has landscaping on the side, which is considered agriculture under our ordinance. Agriculture is permitted. So you can have multiple uses on one property, but the primary use is still single-family residential with some agricultural as accessory happening.
So this would be a single-family use property with agriculture, excluding livestock as an accessory, and then the proposed farm stand as an accessory to the accessory.
It would be a conditional, but yes, it's an accessory use. It's not the primary use of the property.
But would it be accurate that it's an accessory to the accessory use?
Yep, it's accessory to the agricultural use that's going on the site.
And the agriculture use can be an accessory use?
Yes. You're not converting, in this case, the applicant's not asking for a full conversion of this property because they're going to continue to use it as a single-family residence.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? Jeff?
I guess I have questions. I mean, I don't feel like the information before us gives me much perception or perspective of the parking, the traffic flow, the movement that might take place. I mean, I see these pictures, but it's a little hard to gain good perspective. It kind of looks like they're intending to be parking on the breakdown lane, or there is a small turn-in that's labeled on the bottom picture of a parking area, but I don't know necessarily how wide it is. It's kind of out of the frame. If we're not satisfied that all the required documents are included and we don't find it complete, we cannot open the public hearing and hear comments. Is that correct?
If the application is not complete, then it should be just rescheduled to another night.
Thank you, Emily, for confirming. Any other questions for Emily?
Well, I guess, I mean, I have concerns about, parking, some traffic. I'd like to get a better perspective of that. I'd like to get more depth of one of the public comments that were included in our packet. Reference, it sounded like multiple greenhouse structures had been kind of erected in preparation of this. And I understand that accessory use is permitted, and just as any one of us, if we're moving to a retirement ages and we really enjoyed it, we could put greenhouses on our property if they met setback. I think that's fine. It just sounds like, one of them sounded like it was very slanted, that there was a plan to make this a commercial venture, more so than the honor system of a card on the side of the road that says, you know, please leave money in the box and take some flowers. I guess I have a lot of questions, both for the applicant and maybe to be heard, but I don't think that there's enough information, you know, for some of the big concerns for public safety that I would like to see. I mean, I think I need either a more detailed sketch of the parking spaces. It doesn't sound like there's a driveway where they'll be turning off the main road and going in a couple hundred feet to a parking area. So if the parking is truly to be right on the roadside or road edge, I have some concerns about that and would definitely want some more information and a better perspective than what was included in our packet. And I think that would make it hard for me to find the application complete with that missing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions specifically for Emily?
I guess I agree with that in terms of the sketches. What I see missing, I understand traffic as an issue and the peer review coming with that. I'm more concerned about parking, and the applicant does mention people would be able to go down the driveway for the house and turn around, but we don't have any information about that beyond they can turn around in our driveway. Like, how far away is this from the flower stand, and is there actually space to turn around? It would be really helpful to have, you know, I guess I'm a picture person, to be able to see a map of where these things are in location in relation to each other, and whether this is a practical, usable solution, or whether people are more likely to park in the breakdown lane and run into the flower stand.
Thank you, Joyce. Any other questions for Emily? Emily, the applicant's here with us to ask questions.
Yes, she is.
Okay. If the applicant could come up and could answer some, I guess give us a brief little intro and presentation, if you could.
Sure. My name's Robin Stickney, and I'm here tonight. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm here tonight because I filed a conditional use application for a farm stand at 20 Bayview Road. I want to thank everyone from the planning board and the community for attending tonight. I'm asking to build a farm stand to support current flower sales. A farm stand would allow the protection of the cut flowers from all weather conditions, provide space to offer multiple size bouquets and flower arrangements, and keep flower-related items such as wraps, seeds, and tubers in good condition. My intent is to offer fresh and dried herbs as well as dried flowers, as I have in the past. And my current flower sales are at the mercy of rain, heat, and bright light, not ideal for fresh-cut flowers. I'm happy to answer any of the questions I've heard you talking about. Just tell me which question you would like me to respond to first. Parking seems to be the big question.
Any specifics from the board members at this time? Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, yes, parking is one that I'm very interested in.
Okay.
Two, you just mentioned physical protection for the flowers and the display, and I get the roof structure. But is there going to be power in this, where you'll have
No.
refrigerated coolers and humidifiers or anything?
No,
like that?
and that is all stated at least twice in my application. That we are not planning electricity for the building at all. So there's going to be no lighting. That's something that was asked on the application as well. The hours of operation are during daylight hours, seasonal, and parameters are going to be 8 to 6, Thursday through Sunday. This is my outlook right now for hours of operation.
Okay, so another question I had is that there is a percentage of the farm stand's floor space that could be used for other products that might not be grown on your particular parcel. are you open to any sort of condition of approval that would restrict that to only, that all of the floor space is only items that are grown within your property and no other?
I am open to discussion on that. There have been some concerns from my neighbors. The ordinance says you're allowed to have this, that, and the other thing, and I did comment to that. We have no intention of having all sorts of craft items, soap, things like that. But I produce on my property, as I have been producing since 1990. My oldest greenhouse, by the way, is from 1990, so the idea that this is brand-new commercial enterprise for just the flower stand is incorrect. We've had the greenhouses there, and I produce seedlings I have produced them for sale in the past for cut flower sales. I've produced seedlings for herbs and flowers for the greater community, which we sold at the farm stand until we stopped selling at the farm stand. And then I continue to offer sales of plants, flowers, and tubers, things like that I produced to my landscape clients from the time we weren't using the farm stand until the present time. So I know I got off on a tangent there, but just to say that we have been producing and having an agricultural business there since 1990. So limited use of the farm stand, I am open to discussion on that. I have no intention of bringing in outside goods. It's been as to me, I could have everything that Flaherty Farm Stand has. I think Flaherty Farm Stand is not any way, it doesn't any way look like what we're doing there. I mean, that's a full retail establishment now. It's a farm stand in name only. This is an 8x14 building, and it's really meant for flower sales and related goods. So we wrap our flowers, so the wraps will be there. I'm currently doing that in an air-conditioned space in the house, and I would like to be able to do it in the building. We sell seeds that we produce on property, tubers. I've sold thousands of dahlias over the years, and I am in the process the last 5 years of producing more tubers to sell, so they need protection. So seeds, tubers, items that people might want when they purchase a bouquet. It's a wrap bouquet. They might want a card. I've sold, grown, produced, sold flowers, herbs, and arrangements since the early 90s for a variety of events. I know it isn't seen because there isn't a farm stand there that people see me working in to produce the flowers, but I have.
Thank you.
Would you like to address parking?
Any other questions?
I just had a question from a historical context. I know you mentioned you've been in around 1990 was the time frame you mentioned. So what is, at its core, what is different today than 1990?
So in 1990, we built our first greenhouse and started growing seedlings, cut flowers, plants. Really started off with a concentration on herb plants. That was my interest, and quickly grew into flowers because that's where the demand was. And so over the years, the change has been right around the mid-2000s, 2005 or so, change in our situation. And so I was led into landscaping. I had had a couple clients of my own, and I was given the opportunity to do more. And so it opened up a whole really new revenue stream. And so I turned from selling retail to selling wholesale to clients and retail to clients, still producing it in our own greenhouses. So today, where are we at? Still producing plants, tubers, dahlias for my clients. I've always wanted to come back and do cut flowers at our farm again. Not only is it just pure, it's work, but it's pure enjoyment. It's lovely, it's beautiful, people respond to it. I've often had people ask me, there's some people that remember that there was a farm stand there in the 90s. Other people think there was never a farm stand there, but they come to me and remember, oh, are you going to do that ever again? And I said, well, we'll see. And so I started thinking about the idea a couple of years ago. I did not put up the new greenhouses based on that. I put up the new greenhouses based on, one, the need to grow food during COVID. There was food shortages in addition to everything else, and so I bought a new greenhouse package, put it up so I would have access to fresh food year-round. So I've grown food in one of my greenhouses. I grow a lot of food on my property, not going to sell food in the farm stand, not going to sell vegetables. I put in my application that if we had surplus, that I could put it in the farm stand. The only reason I did that is because fresh herbs are sometimes looked at as food, and fresh herbs are something I still have an interest in selling. Fresh bunches of basil, parsley, that was my beginning there. Did I answer your question? I get lost sometimes.
No, you did. I was just trying to understand, because I see the remains of the structure in 2019 in the picture, and then there was a structure there in the 90s.
Yeah,
So that structure is over time, just, you stopped selling because you went wholesale. It
Yes.
sounds like
and
you were using it to sell on the side of the, in
Yep.
that space.
plants,
Stopped.
flowers.
Looking to do it again, adding some things possibly
Yes,
to it. Okay.
and over the years, because we weren't using the farm stand, it grew, bittersweet. Everyone's familiar with bittersweet. We had hops growing on it originally, but bittersweet took over, and we intended to take it down every year. We got to get rid of that, we got to get rid of that. I'm sure the neighbors don't like it, but every year we went to get rid of it, and there were birds nesting in it. We're like, okay, we can't do it now. All right, we gotta wait for the following year. Oh, just can't do it now. Finally, we took it down, and you could see in that photo, the remains of the farm stand are just the kind of platforms where plants were held, but there should be a picture in the packet somewhere that shows the original farm stand in 91, 92. Was a cedar structure that we built.
And about how long, from 92, that structure was in place, how long did it operate? How many years?
Until 2005 consistently.
Okay.
And then we still operated for a couple more years selling cut flowers, but the farm stand, in terms of selling plants, we weren't selling plants there. I was selling plants to my landscape clients.
Yeah, the wholesale.
So it was a
side.
transition.
Yeah, so from about 1992 to 2005, there was something there.
It was a
Then
farm
it
stand.
transitioned away from it.
Yep.
Okay, just trying to
And
understand.
the
timeline.
structure was still there underneath the bittersweet until 2019 when we got the bittersweet down, and that's what
Sure.
that picture is there. And the original upright posts are still there with the sign. I think there's a picture there of that.
Just trying to understand the history of it.
Sure.
And what happened. And
Yep,
so thank you.
sure.
You answered the question. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Matt. Any additional questions? Joyce?
I guess the parking.
Parking.
I mean, because it looks like the small pad in front of the farm stand looks like a drive-in back-out place, which is problematic.
Yes.
And then, the relation of the driveway and whether people would even know to use it and could turn around there as
So-
alternate parking.
The pad in front of the original site, the new site is a little bit further back because it's a 40-foot setback now. And so it's very nearby where the proposed new farm stand will go, but the old farm stand, it's paved right in front of where it was. It's, and I do have the measurements in here, if anyone has seen that. It's 16 feet wide, 16 feet deep. I was reminded that 16 feet deep is not enough for what's required. However, there is, those posts are going to come down, and there is land, grass right in front of it to extend that parking area to accommodate the 20-foot. So I do have 2 parking spaces effectively today. What I also have is open land that you can pull into. Now, there's no signage to direct people, so someone asked me the other day, what's the percentage of people that actually pull in? I don't think anyone pulls in. They only pull up to the side of the road, and I said, no, a lot of people pull in. I have a camera right there, and it shows that people do pull in. But because the breakdown lane is wide, people do pull up to the side of the road. I realize that presents a problem for most neighbors in terms of their concerns that they've shared. So what I have is extra space. We haven't developed it, but I have space just off the parking pad you see, and you'd need a kind of a Google map, and I actually think there is an overview Google map in here. I could kind of show where, but without walking on the property. I I don't know if anyone wants to put that up, but there is space. We use it all the time to drive in and out when I have a trailer. It's hard for me with my long trailer and truck to get in and out of my driveway how I'd like to. So I pull in the farm stand parking, I drive over to my driveway at the house, and I believe those measurements are in here too, because I measured everything in this application. I'll tell you where it is here. It gives measurements, let's see, here we go. So farm stand location, house location.
Is this the image that you're speaking of here that Emily's put up on the screens?
So that is kind of it. I don't have the pictures in front of me anymore, but I guess there was I don't know if it's coming in color, there was a color picture of a Google shot from a few years ago. So it shows the original farm stand that was covered with bittersweet. You can see it. There it is. Is this go there?
Yep.
I can show? How does it go? Just pull it off?
I'm not, I think we have an extra here.
Just stay on? Okay, thank you. So this is the original farm stand under bittersweet. So this is before the farm stand was taken down. There's bittersweet right there. The proposed, as long as I'm here, the proposed new site for the farm stand is right here, slightly behind and between two crabapple trees. And the house is over here, and you can see the driveway to the house. So this area here, from the parking area at the original farm stand to the house, is open grass. And I propose that more parking can be provided here where the original farm stand, and people, if it's deemed necessary, and we can make these adjustments, can drive this way and enter my driveway. It's all wide open there to exit the property facing forward, which I think is safer, considered safer. So you would pull in here, park here or here. There's plenty of room to pull in there, pull out, and then exit toward the driveway. That's what I have available. Should I stay there?
No, I think we're all set to that.
Is that
Board members, were you able to follow on the screen down here? I think Emily was moving the cursor around.
So
Any?
It's hard to see from a Google map, and there's a large section of green there between the farm stand area and my driveway that is no longer there. It's a pine tree that was taken down this past winter. There's been some public comment about that too. That's not important at this point, but that tree is no longer there.
All right, thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think it's very important to me if there were to be a plan presented for vehicular circulation, to have them pull into the previous farm stand, possibly a one-way in, a couple parking spaces within the property, and then a directional sign to route them back to the house. But then it brings into play, and I don't know which group of trees, but Google's hard to see. There's obviously vegetation on either side of the driveway. Make sure that our peer review verifies site distance. That would, I think, present at least a clear plan for public safety and how vehicular traffic would access this farm stand in a safer way versus parking in a breakdown lane in a median. And I would be open to seeing that proposal, that plan. I think that would be required, in my opinion, for application completeness.
So in the proposal, you'll need exact measurements and I'm not sure how to put a proposal. You just ask me what you need. I'll provide it.
My singular opinion of the 7, I mean, I'm okay with kind of this sketch. It was a black and white one that you had earlier that had some dimensions. I think it's page 19 of 25 on our packet. I mean, something along those lines, giving us a sketch of where you're planning on tracking this interior drive, how wide it's going to be, where it's going to tie in. And then, you know, sight lines are helpful. I don't think it necessarily needs to be done by a traffic professional. Obviously, we're going to probably verify at our peer review, but usually it's a certain dimension back from the curb line in your driveway at a certain height, which is the vehicular height, and the sight distances in either direction, and then mapping it with the speed of Bayview Road. So I think that's a little bit of very pertinent information that we need to have, in how many parking spaces you'll have on that interior section, so the cars would be off of the public way, and how they'll safely maneuver interior to exit. If there are two cars, can either one of them back out at any given point without impeding the flow of the other one or an incoming car? If it's going to be a gravel base, doesn't necessarily need to be pervious, but that sort of detail sketched in, I think, would be very, very important for us to make a decision on parking and vehicular circulation.
Does it need to be a gravel base? Because that's not what I plan to do. I would create a parking area that is on natural turf. Sometimes you go to other garden centers and you see it's just dirt, but it's designated parking area. I don't want gravel. I don't think that's required.
I think we would need to see something proposed.
Okay.
And then have staff review it.
Okay,
And
I can do that.
review that against the standards. I think that's probably the correct way to go.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is seeing some plan for making sure that people pull off the road to park and don't back out onto the road to leave.
Okay.
And it looks like you have space to be able to put that together. But, yeah, definitely a little different than the small paved area that we see now that makes it look like people's only alternative would be to back out onto Bayview Road.
Jeff?
Maybe some concept plans of what you're intending for signage. I noticed there was a picture in there that had the hours of operation. It's a beautiful little sign. Maybe what you might incorporate into that to say, enter here, one way only, something so the guidance is very clear, possibly from both directions on Bayview Road, and then make sure that falls under our sign ordinance size-wise would be helpful as well, just so we have very clear communication. And then obviously the peer review. I think we had another one that was, I think the gravel will probably come up something to make it a solid base, because if it's rain and there's traffic, natural soils become very muddy. You see that at seasonal Christmas sales, Christmas tree sales locations and stuff, like fairs and carnivals. It's not ideal for a full seasonal business. And I understand your concerns about the environment and what you're trying to preserve.
And of course, this isn't going to be in the winter like Christmas tree sales,
No.
so we may not
It's-
have as much of a need.
It's seasonal.
It's not going to be plowed.
Cut flowers are not available actually until after the official mud season. I mean, you can have rain and mud anytime, I suppose, but we're pure sand there. We never have standing water. I mean, when we had that 18 inches of rain years ago, water was flowing down the street. There's like one puddle in my driveway, that's it. There's no standing water. And I think the official mud season is spring. Cut flowers wouldn't begin, the farm stand wouldn't open until mid-May at the earliest.
So I would be in favor of that, and then would probably, I'd propose a site walk after, once we see a proposed vehicular circulation plan. That way we can kind of see for ourselves as a board. the
Thank you,
site
Jeff.
conditions.
Any other, Jim?
Mr. Chair, I suppose you could, rather than doing all that, you could simply have a hammerhead turn right where the existing 16-foot entrance exists and have parking off to the side, and then people
Oh,
back
what did you
in.
call the turn?
Like a hammerhead turn is what it's called, because
Oh, okay.
you drive in, you back out, and
Okay.
then, you back up, and then you drive out forward.
I'll
Instead
have to
of,
look at the space and see what it'll accommodate.
yeah, I mean, that, it seems to me, would do the same thing as this, big loop that's created, and I guess from what the board's saying is, just pick what you want to do and give us a good diagram about it, and we can go take a little look, I guess, and that may solve the problem.
As far as signage goes, is there a sign ordinance that I can have? Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a
Yes,
couple of
please.
questions? I just want to make it very clear with what the applicant is asked to return with. And additionally, we have had site walks before that we've scheduled, even if there's pending items for the record. So I don't know if the board wants to schedule a site walk maybe for August 20th before the meeting. I know it's only a week away, but you can publicly announce it, or in September if the board's preference is to have a date out. The ordinance does specify that we should be continuing for cause, so we just need to be very clear with what we're looking for. So it sounds like so far we need a sketch of the parking area and then signage. There is a sign ordinance, but I do also just want to make it clear that the code enforcement department is the municipal reviewing authority on signage. Certainly we can take in concepts, but it will be up to them to review any signage and make sure that it falls in the Saco's ordinance. I know there's also a survey request, so a waiver request. So maybe some feedback on that would be helpful, and anything else in the application so that the applicant can come really well prepared. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Emily.
Through the chair. So how late in the season are you planning on?
So usually frost stops flowers.
Okay, because in your application, you do have from May to December.
I do have May to December because I gave it the widest parameters that I felt I could do sales there. There's a good chance it wouldn't be open that late. But dried flowers, which I would like to do in the future, which I did in the past, keep. They're not affected by frost. So I could continue a little longer beyond frost, which kills flowers. And there are some cold hardy flowers. I'm not growing them in the fall right now. I've grown them in the spring. But I gave that as a general idea of the length of time. I wouldn't be open beyond that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any additional questions from board members? Emily, can we get additional clarity, I guess, for me, and I'd like to hear from other board members as well. Can we get input from Dave Toomey on the accessory use component to this and how all these uses work?
Yep, I certainly can do that. The director has sat in on every single meeting Robin and I have had to put this application with the questions. We've had 2 meetings on this application. He's been involved in every single one of them. But I will certainly ask him for a formal comment.
Okay.
Is it just relative to accessory use versus primary use on a site?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand how agriculture can be an accessory use to a single-family home based on our ordinance. So a farm stand accessory to agriculture, that makes sense. That's clear to me, but I'm not sure how agriculture is accessory to a single family. So I want to understand that. And then conditional uses. In our ordinance, does a conditional use need to get recorded with the registry of deeds? Or is it a Saco, it's just a Saco zoning ordinance component, right?
It's usually Saco zoning ordinance. Certainly, if the applicant was amenable, you could add conditions. If you wanted the applicant to file something on the registry, I'm not sure if there'd be opposition to that, but you can add it as a condition if it was something that you'd
All right, thank you.
prefer to have done.
Any other thoughts, board members? I guess we should,
Mr. Chair?
yes, Jim.
I think, I know on that issue of an accessory use, agriculture is an accessory use, I think as the planner indicated, you can have multiple permitted uses on a property if they are not inconsistent. And I mean, a lot of the farms in Saco, somebody lives on the farm, and they're also performing, or doing agriculture. So, and those are 2 uses that exist on the same property. And I think we need to think about this in that same way. although I'd be very interested to hear the code enforcement officer's interpretation of that.
Yeah, Jim, I agree. That's why I'm a little confused on this one. It's in a scenario like you described, it seems like a farm is living on the farm is the primary use, and then the single family is incidental to that. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Is it agriculture first, or is it single family first? I guess that's sort of what I'm trying to just make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's kind of thing.
If I could add something to that?
Sure.
So we have farmed the property since 1990, and farm, I have found, versus residential gardens are when it's for profit. So that's my use of the property since 1990. But the property has been farmed before we were there. There was an existing farm stand when we moved in, belonged to family members. They farmed vegetables and flowers and actually sold them wholesale. Before that, there were cabins, but there were also in the 60s horses and sheep there. Just to show the history of the property as a farm. The house was there the whole time, but so was the farm.
Sure.
That's all I wanted to add.
Sure, thank you. And that's sort of what I want to make sure is clear, that it seems like it's necessary for it to be agriculture first and not a house, not a single family use that has some farming on it. That's the part that I just want to make sure is 100% clear. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I kind of hear your struggle, and I'm struggling in a different capacity, because, we have to be careful. We do our zoning revisions, we try to simplify, and then there's the issue of discontinuance, right? This farm stand hasn't been operated since 2005. And, we're at the third level here. Primary use is single-family dwelling. The accessory use has been agricultural, and that sounds like that has been continued, even though the farm stand stopped, because she was using it for, starter growth. And now we're coming back before us to look at a farm stand, which is a conditional use. So there's been that void in time, and I appreciate the history, but the history of what went on there in the 50s and 60s isn't really relevant with regards to our zoning now. And if it had been continuous use, it's a continuance of a non-conforming use. Common one in that area was the city solicitor brought up Garsides on previous ones, right? It's not really a conforming use, but it's never ceased, so it's a non-conforming use. They can continue, but we can't close it down for 5 years and then plop up another Garsides and reopen it because it doesn't meet current zoning. So I hear that balance, right? I'm trying to balance that in my head as well, and I see the scrutiny with this because of the parking and traffic. But it'd be no different than somebody coming before us for conditional use for an in-home professional occupation. Somebody that's downsizing from a CPA now wants to do just a few tax returns there in semi-retirement. They want to have a small office in their home. It'd be the same sort of use, same sort of scrutiny, right? We're trying to mix two uses as a conditional use. And it would be very different, in my mind, if, and I get, trying to change a life, maybe slow down a little bit, not so much physical landscaping, but focus more on the income of this. You could be growing flowers in these greenhouses and putting them in the back of your car and bringing them to a wedding venue, and nobody knows that you just sold the flowers. It looks like it's agricultural. There's no impact to the neighbors other than seeing your greenhouses. And you could literally have the same greenhouses if you chose to grow 100% of the food for yourself, if it was all foodstuffs, and donate it to the food pantry. So I'm trying to weigh that out, but obviously she's trying to do the right thing and come before us for the conditional use of the farm stand for selling. And to me, that's the biggest point that I think need to focus on, that I need to focus on, is impact on neighbors, safety of pedestrians, and vehicular circulation. So I think we probably should address, as Emily pointed out, what are our thoughts about the survey waiver? She's requested a waiver for the survey. I'm requesting a sketch anyways of proposed parking and turnaround, whether it be Hammerhead, whatever you dream up. I don't think that necessarily warrants her having to do a full-blown site survey. But I think we as a board should probably come to some conclusion to give her direction. So can she sketch on top of a Google Earth picture of her concept of what she'd like to do, and we go out and schedule a site visit? Or do we have to say, yeah, you need to have a full-blown site survey? I think that would be the next step to offer guidance. And as far as a site walk, like I said, I'd be in favor of a site walk, but I think we should push it into September to give the applicant time to kind of work up a couple of concept plans of vehicular circulation and not be pressed for us to get there. And that way that can be kind of mapped out, flags, stakes, ribbons on the property when we go for our site walk, so we really have a really clear sense of what you're intending. That way, if your sketch is off a little bit, we can see with flagging or ribbons what you'd propose on your parcel. Those are my thoughts, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jeff. Jim?
Mr. Chair, I don't think a survey is necessary. I agree with Jeff that it would be helpful to have a sketch, so you could see exactly where the parking is supposed to be. But I don't think a full survey is necessary of this piece of property. I mean, most of the property is, the survey would be completely unnecessary. So I'd be in favor of the waiver.
Thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts from board members on the waiver?
I would be in favor of the waiver as well, but I just want to bring something up. Jeff had mentioned the void or the stop and use from a certain period to now. But couldn't you also look at it from a different perspective and say that land has been used as a farming regardless of the time period? Yes, they only stopped one piece of that, which was the farm stand. It's still considered a farming location, or whatever, however you want to classify it. But it's still, I think just taking away the farm stand doesn't mean it was never a farm. That's what we're saying. I'm done.
Thank you, Matt.
Through the chair, I feel like I'm in favor of the waiver as well. If the project was happening on, say, an abutting property line, but it's very obvious that it's in the center of the property, it's not going to affect, say, somebody else's property that's right beside it, I mean, on property lines. So I'd be in favor for the waiver as well.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah, I'd also be in favor of the waiver for the same reasons, that it's just in the middle of the property, and it sounds like it's pretty obvious where the former farm stand was. So there's nothing on the boundary lines.
Thank you,
Neighbors.
Joyce. Jeff?
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver for 20 Bayview Road, submission requirement of the site survey.
Second.
With the condition, with the condition that we reserve the right to request one if the proposed vehicular pathways raise question with city staff about drainage and runoff.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff. And the second, Jim. Any additional discussion on the motion? So, motion before us to grant the waiver of a site survey with the condition that if city staff raises questions on site drainage, that the board reserves the right to request a survey after. Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'm going to vote no. Motion passes 5-1. So with that, board members, do we want to schedule a time now for a site walk, or are board members in agreement that a site walk would be beneficial to this application? And if so, an appropriate time to do such? I agree with Jeff that having a site walk before our next meeting isn't necessarily necessary. I think that agenda's pretty full, but perhaps Emily can give us a few dates that may work for a site walk.
For a site walk.
Yes.
And just so I'm clear, do we want to, just so that we get full timing, if the applicant presents the additional information, are you thinking we're tabling this till August 20th or September 3rd? Just so I can help you navigate dates.
That, I'm not sure. I think probably the September date is probably more appropriate, and probably better. Seeing a few heads nods here.
Okay, so we could do, looks like August 27th is an option. That's a Tuesday.
Does the 27th work for board members?
I'm not available that day.
I'm not either. But if a majority of the board is and our vice chair is available, we can continue that. We don't need a quorum, do we?
We could do August 28th, which is a Wednesday. We could accommodate that day. We could potentially do September 3rd before the board meeting.
How does the board feel about the 3rd before our scheduled meeting?
I'd prefer that, actually, if it was before the meeting.
I think that makes sense. I mean, I can do the other dates, but it'd be better to have a majority of the board.
Yeah, looks like the 3rd is preferred by board members before the meeting.
And would it be helpful then to try to have materials back on the 20th? And then if we don't have enough information, you can just decide to table it again?
I think that's fine.
Did you want to do 5 p.m. on the 3rd?
5 p.m. would be appropriate, yes. Looks like board members are putting that in their calendar now. So a site walk for September 3rd at 5 p.m.
So we will mail notices for September 3rd site walk to the same notification list that was sent out previously.
Yes, thank you. As long as that date works for the applicant, we haven't checked. Yes. Okay,
Yeah, I'll be there.
great, thank you. So with that, board members, do we have any additional items for the applicant that we're looking for prior to finding the application complete? And as a reminder, we must find the application complete before we move to open the public hearing.
Excuse me, through the chair. Is there a way, do you have any copies of the past surveys that you've had?
I don't. That's why I asked for a waiver. I don't have a copy.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any other pieces of information that the board is looking for this application?
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I have already sent our traffic peer reviewer. I know it was asked earlier. It's Sewell is the traffic peer reviewer. I've already sent them and put this on their schedule to do the peer review. Is there a concern that I should be aware of, or is that appropriate?
I don't think the board has a concern.
Okay,
specifically.
thank you. I just want to make sure. Thanks.
Thank you. We just haven't, we haven't had a response from the peer reviewer to date.
Right, she's working on the application review.
Great, thank you. And the city receiving peer review comments is not part of the application requirements.
No, it's not part of application completeness review.
Thank you. Any other questions, board members, for staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chair,
Jeff?
I would move to table the application, the conditional use review of 20 Bayview Road until September 3rd.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
Second.
Second by Jim, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to table until September 3rd? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
A vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. So we'll see you September 3rd and on site, and we'll look for some of that updated information, and we'll keep moving forward.
And I am to have information in on parking by August 20th.
So just so that I'm clear and we're all clear on what we're doing here is the board is looking for a sketch of parking area with dimensions to show how cars can safely get in and out and turn around on site.
Site circulation, yes.
Yep, you're looking for a signage sketch showing general conformance with ordinance standards. Some information from our code enforcement director on accessory use and primary uses relative to this application. Does that capture that? And then we are scheduling a site walk on September 3rd at 5 p.m. And this item will be continued as both application completeness review and public hearing on September 3rd at our regular board time at 6.
As far as the signage goes, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong in what your intention was, I don't think it was necessarily the specifics as to what the sign looked like, but I think the specifics of signage for the site circulation. Enter here, park here, exit there, don't back up out onto Bayview. I think that was more the intention, is signage for site circulation.
Correct, yes, for the site circulation. And I believe, too, our ordinance has an exemption that some of those signs are exempt from the square footage. So we can check with Director Toomey at that time, but, sketch of where it is and where these signs might be placed so that when we do our site survey, our site walk, we'll know where these signs might be placed and have any recommendations if we see any. Thank you.
And then just for clarity, our planning board SOP does not call for us to renotice the neighborhood if a hearing date is continued and publicly announced at the planning board meeting. So we will send the site walk notices, but we will not be renoticing for the public hearing because it's already been noticed. So I just want to make sure that's clear for everyone here and for the board, and we're all in agreement that that is the SOP.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, we will move to our next item on the agenda this evening. This is item 5C, and this is Blaine Street and Roebuck Avenue. This is map 40, lot 3, 4, 9, 10, and 11. And this is a residential condominium development for 13 single-family units. And this is The applicant is Seacoast Land Acquisitions, presented by Sebago Technics. And this evening is a public hearing and continued application review for final subdivision. And this is within the medium-density residential zoning district. Emily?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is our final subdivision review public hearing. We've gone through and vetted a lot of the questions, all of the questions that have come up during this preliminary review. Just as a reminder, conditional use site plan and preliminary subdivision review approvals were issued on June 4th. July 16th, the board found this final subdivision review application complete. We also had gone ahead and done site walks and a lot of due diligence during the review process as a whole. The condo docs have been updated and have been confirmed through legal review. The final landscape peer review is we just wanted to make sure that all the comments had been addressed, so we sent it back out to the landscape peer reviewer. This is a pretty simple thing that we can just confirm as part of a condition, and it's written into the draft conditions here as well. So everything's been addressed from staff's end. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Emily. Board members, any questions for Emily at this time? All right, and with that, we have our applicant here. If you want to give us a brief update.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Kendra Ramsell, and I'm here on behalf of Seacoast Land Acquisitions, LLC. As Emily mentioned, we've been here several times. We've received preliminary approval for site plan review, preliminary subdivision, as well as a conditional use permit. So I'm just here to present the final plan and answer any further questions that you may have. We've also addressed several comments that were made during the preliminary process and submitted, I think, 4 different plan set sheets with revisions from preliminary to final. So that's where we're at currently with permitting. We've also received, as a reminder, approval for an Army Corps application for wetland impacts, as well as DEP approval through delegated review. I guess that will come once this is approved finally. So just to orient you all, the project is located on undeveloped land at the end of Roebuck Avenue, which is off of Route 112, and we're proposing a 13-unit condominium development. These are single-family, single-unit condos that are just under 1,000 square feet in size. However, they're 2 stories, so there's double that in living space. We're proposing 3 parking spaces for each one. One of those parking spaces includes a 1-car garage, and then there are 2 parking spaces within the driveway for each condominium unit. As far as utilities, we're proposing public water and sewer connections, as well as a public connection to the stormwater infrastructure. However, most of the stormwater runoff from the site will be first treated with porous pavement under the roadway for the development before it's outletted to wetlands that are in the surrounding area. We're also proposing building drip edge filters on both sides of each condominium unit for treatment of each roof. In total, we've proposed 95% treatment of impervious areas and over 80% treatment of the total developed area. For lighting, we've proposed 5 light poles. We've really tried to keep lighting to a minimum in order to minimize any outsourcing of light around the site. I know it's a very residential feel. It's a very wooded area. The public has mentioned several times how they like how it's dark back there, so we wanted to make it safe, but also minimize bright light spilling over the property line. So also there was a comment made last time about the light pole height. All poles, including the ones with 3-foot bases, this was a comment from Jeff, all poles with 3-foot bases have been lowered to a 16-foot pole, and there are only 2 of those. As far as buffering, we have maintained as much buffering as we can. There is a hefty buffer in the wetland areas that are remaining and not being filled. We've also proposed I believe 6-foot fence along the rear property line for the development between the new development and the railroad beds. And in addition to that, we are seeding the side slopes where we had to clear to the property line. We're seeding the side slopes with a meadow mix so that the kind of 3-to-1 side slopes can revert back to natural conditions over time. We've also proposed some landscaping, as Emily mentioned, around transformers, as well as a row of trees along the abutting property at the entrance to the road. And we did that in conjunction with the property owner there. I think there are 6 arborvitaes that are proposed. We worked with the Conservation Commission to establish the species there. That's all I have. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions from board members for the applicant at this time? Jeff?
At one point in the conversation in between the city engineer, kind of the southwest corner of the runoff, it was, there was question, I think it was like of a culvert that goes towards the sewer, towards the railroad or under the railroad track. So that question, as far as regard to capacity, has been satisfactorily resolved, that is of adequate size?
That's correct, yes. We actually had the railroad tracks surveyed, and they're now shown on the plans. We also had the culvert, the cross culvert under the railroad tracks, which is off of our property entirely. That was surveyed, elevation shots were taken, and then our stormwater model for that study point was updated to include not only the runoff coming off of our site, but the wetland off-site, and the culvert that conveys the stormwater runoff through that wetland to the other side of the railroad tracks. And we are still meeting peak rates of runoff on the outlet side of that culvert.
Okay. So when you say your computerized modeling that you typically
Yes.
have in our packets.
Yep, HydroCAD model.
And then you had mentioned in your presentation about 95% of the impervious area was being treated, and 80% of the redevelopment area. That's talking about the treatment, the percolation treatment through your media beds. But your rate of runoff, right, is you're still meeting our requirements of, pre-construction versus post-construction. You're not changing the rate of the runoff, correct?
Yes, so from a land cover perspective, we're treating 90% of the impervious land coverage and over 80% of the developed area, which is the impervious and the vegetated area surrounding it. So whatever's not wooded, over 80% is being treated. As far as peak rates of runoff go, we've modeled different study points on the site. There are 3 of them that were modeled. And we're meeting the 2, 10, 25, and I think 50-year storms as required. And yes, that does include an existing model of the site versus a proposed model of the site in the developed condition.
Correct. So, but that obviously is including your focus area, which is the site, right? So if there were changes immediately adjacent to that, that could have some positive or negative effects on all the work that you've done, correct?
Yes, it's my understanding, though, that development would also have to meet the same standards.
Correct, right? But you guys are both, or they could be both going to the same wetland, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions from board members? Jeff?
Mr. Chair, I move to open the public hearing for the Blaine Street, Roebuck Ave.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, or the second, excuse me, Jim. Any discussion regarding the motion to open the public hearing? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to open the public hearing. If you are here this evening to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And we allow 5 minutes for the first round of comments, and if necessary, a second round. We usually limit to 3 minutes or so. Go ahead.
sort of a simple person, so I live at 31. And, well, I know when they build them back.
Sorry, 31.
31,
31
Roebuck.
Roebuck. And your name, sir?
David Jakes.
David Jakes, thank you.
I guess my only concern is that, well, I'm hoping when they build behind me at German Auto, that instead of a 6-foot fence, people need some privacy. And I know last time they were talking about behind me, you guys, all of you, you said you could go to 10, 6, but you could go to 10, but you couldn't go over. And I know a lot of the people down there, and a little privacy, more privacy wouldn't hurt them, building, you know, something like that. Otherwise, that, it's been on the docket so long, everything's been spoken out, and I agree, it should go through.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, seeing no other public interest in speaking, I move to close the public hearing.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
I'll second that one, too.
Second by Jim, thank you. Any additional discussion? Those in favor of the motion to close the public hearing? Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to close the public hearing. All right, board discussion. Any outstanding items that the board feels that we need to discuss or request or ask for clarity on? Any questions on findings of fact or conditions of approval that have been drafted and presented?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to adopt the draft findings of fact as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Carrie Lynn. Any discussion on the motion to adopt the draft findings of fact as presented? Those in favor of the motion, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to grant the draft conditions of approval.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Carrie Lynn. Or, excuse me, the second. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the draft the draft conditions of approval as presented? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. The motion passes 6-0 to adopt the draft conditions of approval as presented.
So, Mr. Chair, I move to approve, to grant final subdivision approval for the project at Roebuck Avenue, map 40, lots 3, 4, 9, 10, and 11.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce.
Second.
Second by Jim, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to find the application for final subdivision review at Eastern Landing, map 40, lots 3, 4, 9, 10, 11. I guess a
Grant
Motions
final
to-
subdivision approval.
motion is to grant the subdivision approval, yes. No additional discussion. Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that everything on that item, Emily? I believe so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Emily, are you all set to present this next item? With our time?
We could do this one, and then Shannon and I will switch off.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda this evening is item 5D, and this is for 73 Industrial Park Road, map 71, lot 1. This is a light industrial warehouse and flex space. The developer is Saco Flex LLC, presented by DM Roma. And this evening, this is a continued application review for a site plan proposal to construct 29,670 square feet of light industrial warehouse flex space for 13 units and associated site improvements within the industrial zoning district. Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board has been reviewing this application since June 18th, when it found it complete. On July 16th, the board hosted its site walk. We heard from the applicant on that evening and opened the public hearing. The board then closed the hearing and continued its review to this evening's meeting. We have provided the comments we've received to date, as well as draft findings of fact, and some conditions that were recommended by our city engineer, which have been incorporated into those draft findings. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Emily. Any questions for Emily, board members? All right, and with us this evening, we have our applicant.
Hey, I'm Peter Lavoie from Saco Flex LLC. Jay from DM Roma is on vacation, so he's not here tonight. We are here seeking final approval for the project based on the findings of facts and conditions as outlined here.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted approval or confirmation. There was a comment here from the Parks and Rec Director that he wanted additional blue spruces planted and trees in front of the building, between the building and Industrial Park Road. Where does that
I
plan
believe that's
stand?
one of the conditions is getting on the same page with them.
So that's not a, that wasn't a problem for you
Correct.
guys?
No, that's not
I
an
just
issue for us.
missed that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, if there are no other questions for the applicant, I'll move that we adopt the findings of fact for the site plan approval at 73 Industrial Park Road.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second.
Second by Jeff, thank you. Motion made and seconded to adopt the draft findings of fact for 73 Industrial Park Road, map 71, lot 1, as presented this evening. Any additional discussion? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
So then, Mr. Chair, I'll move to adopt the conditions of approval drafted for us for the 73 Industrial Park Road site plan request.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second.
Second by Joyce, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the draft conditions of approval for 73 Industrial Park Road, map 71, lot 1? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to adopt the draft conditions of approval.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the site plan application as supported by the findings of fact and conditions of approval that we've already approved for the 73 Industrial Park Road property.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second.
Second by Joyce, thank you. Any discussion on the motion to grant the approval for a site plan for 73 Industrial Park Road, map 71, lot 1, based on the findings of fact and conditions of approval as presented? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to approve the site plan review for 73 Industrial Park Road, map 71, lot 1. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, can we take a brief recess, 5 minutes or so?
Sure, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for that short recess. We will move on with our agenda this evening, and our next item is item 5E, and this is for 89 Industrial Park Road, map 72, lot 2-3, and this is conversion to a medical marijuana dispensary. This is a public hearing and continued application review for site plan and conditional use for the conversion of an existing operations to medical marijuana dispensary within the industrial zoning district. Shannon?
Yes, hello, everyone. So this application is a site plan and conditional use review for a registered dispensary use at 89 Industrial Park Road. 89 Industrial Park Road exists of 4 different units, units A, B, C, and D. 3 of those units, units B, C, and D, will be used by the applicant to support their business operations. Units B and C will be utilized for medical cultivation, and Unit D will be utilized for medical registered dispensary sales. So no exterior changes are proposed as part of this application, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Great, thank you. Board members, any questions for Shannon? And with that, we have the applicant with us this evening, if you want to give us a brief update.
Good evening, board members, chairman, city staff. My name is Tyler Crespo, operations manager and co-owner at Ripple Wellness. Since our last meeting, I resubmitted a updated parking plan for your review, as well as some further detail regarding our odor mitigation plan. If there's any further questions, I'd be happy to help answer them.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time? So again, we received for additional materials here, we did receive the traffic peer review. We did receive some lighting information, some signage, parking, and as the applicant mentioned, some additional information on the odor mitigation plan. And this evening, this application before us again is continued site plan and conditional use review and public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jim. Any additional discussion? Those in favor of opening the public hearing? Matt?
Yeah. Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to open the public hearing. If anyone is here with us this evening that would like to speak on this project, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record and give us any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, and we will gather them all and we will respond and answer them the best we can at the end.
Mr. Chair, not seeing anyone coming forward, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jim. Any additional discussion on closing the public hearing? Those in favor of the motion, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to close the public hearing. Board discussion. Any questions, comments, concerns on any of the peer comments or additional information provided?
Mr. Chair, I think my only comment would be, I think the parking, the redrawing of the parking makes perfect sense now, and I'd consider that adequate.
Thank you, Joyce.
Mr. Chair, I'll agree on the parking plan. The lighting information also seemed to answer questions that we had at our previous meetings, although I'd love to hear Jeff's thoughts on it. And it seemed to me the odor control mitigation plan was pretty detailed as well.
Thank you, Jim, for those comments. Any other board member thoughts, questions, concerns?
So, Mr. Chair, assuming there are no further comments by the board, I assume the appropriate course would be for us to continue this to the next available meeting date where we can review findings of fact and conditions of approval.
Yes. Jim? Oh, excuse me, Jeff. Everyone's a J up here. There's a lot. Anyway, sorry, excuse me. Jeff, go ahead.
I guess I was hoping that maybe you'd pick up on some of the lighting. I have some questions about the lighting. I know they presented some information in the packet. I'm a little bit skewed by it. There were two different types of cut sheets for fixtures that were provided, one of them being a traditional wall pack with forward throw, second one being a full cutoff wall pack. And on the key here on page 5 of 9, they have the locations mapped out with some colored graphics as to where they are on the building. I'm just a little bit mixed with what was provided. I don't know which design fixture is where. And for instance, the kind of yellow block is a 400 watt equivalent LED. Do we know for certain that those are the fixtures that are currently installed, or are you planning on replacing fixtures?
The fixtures that are currently installed are fluorescent bulbs, and we are planning on updating them to LED fixtures as included in the cut sheet.
Okay, so two questions. One is the cut sheets that were provided, like we had from a previous applicant, are generic cut sheets, and the wattage ranges that are available are pretty astronomical. And so are you guaranteeing that you have a 400 watt equivalent LED, which is approximately 16,000 lumens? And I'm assuming you meant probably an HPS or a high pressure or metal halide fixture versus fluorescent on the outside?
Correct, the wall pads are high pressure sodiums, yes.
So some sort of a high pressure sodium for 400 watt is almost 50,000 lumens. So it's a pretty drastic difference there, 2.5 times. Kind of like to get a better sense of what you're proposing and which ones. So just because the use of a full cutoff is part of our zoning ordinance, and if you have the forward throw ones, I guess it's a matter of if you're complying with the full cutoff requirements of our ordinance, but that's typically what most contractors would try to provide you, so that we could have forward throw into that parking lot where your patrons are going to be parking. And that's where I start to have some concern. Without having a photometric layout, we have very little idea of how much light is going to be making it out to those parking lots that will be on the kind of westerly side of the lot, as well as the forward throw towards the street. Because there are, I think we made it, you have a block here that shows two 35-watt solar sign lights, apparently at both entrances, right? So are there two signs that are going in?
There's an existing sign that has the solar lighting currently existing
Okay.
on the left-hand entrance, on the ZDS sign, and then the Code Enforcement Office has approved a additional sign on the alternate exit to Industrial Park Road, which will have matching solar lighting.
Very task-specific lighting for that, for the signages that are out there.
Yes.
Not really doing anything to illuminate the parking area. I guess just for me, I still don't feel like this is enough information to make a sound decision on the illumination levels now that we're taking this facility from a place of employment, employees only in the parking lot, to a retail type facility with the general public coming in and out. That's my opinion. That's kind of where I stand. I don't think it's adequate information. And I don't know where, like I said, where they're planning on using which light fixture, and if it'll meet our zoning ordinance for the full cutoffs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any additional thoughts or questions?
I guess, my question is, would a photometric plan address that? Or do we need information about which fixtures go where? Because we have wattage here on the key, but not the fixtures labeled.
So I guess to answer your question, yes, they will not generate a photometric plan without a very specific fixture wattage, fixture mounting height, and optical display. So that's something that they would take all that information, position on the building, and then plot out for us the point-by points, like you've seen in a lot of the applications, the little crosshairs throughout the lot. It'll give you a sense of the illumination levels at each point. But all of that would need to be, provided by them, by an electrical contractor, for them to generate that photometric plan. And then that way we would also know when you see the style of fixture that they're selecting, they will highlight all the design criteria, the part number, the matrix, if you will, of what fixture they were planning, they used in that projection and that layout.
In generating this photometric light plan for your review, what are the specific key elements you'll be looking for with the differential in dispensary cultivation versus dispensary medical approved retail sales?
Well, we have, in my opinion, I'm being asked to weigh this to our ordinances, which will now be a retail use, and our lighting standards for uniformity ratio across the plane for people walking. We don't want to have really intense light spots that go very dark very quickly. It's hard for the human eye to adjust, hard to see any curbs, any additional hazards that may be in the parking lot. So, and we also want to make sure that you're not putting on a fixture that is going to be glaring or obtrusive to passing motorists or to neighboring properties. I mean, you have some pretty good buffering, in my opinion. But not knowing what you're picking for a fixture, if you put a, I think they went up to a 74-watt wall pack on that building, it could be pretty, and if it's a forward throw, it could be pretty blinding on the Industrial Park Road. So just asking the same thing that of all applicants that come before us is that we need accurate information to say that, yes, you are in compliance with the zoning ordinances as it stands.
Okay.
And that photometric will show if you're going across property lines as well.
Okay, and just for further clarification in regards to the terminology of retail, I believe under both the state's definition for medical dispensary sales, the term is dispensing, and I believe also included in the Saco zoning ordinance, we do not allow retail cannabis, but we allow medical dispensaries to dispense. How does the lighting in this relation correlate to that, as it not being a physical retail use, it purely being a change of licensure to the already approved activities on site?
So the lighting ordinance the lighting standards in our ordinance require, there's quite a few criteria here. So we've been trying to work through getting some of that information. So some of which there are uniformity ratios, 4:1, maximum of 8-foot candles on the ground surface, property line minimums 0.1, sort of things like that, again, for some of the reasons that Jeff has mentioned in there. So that's not really specific to the dispensary or the medical use, but the overall site plan review standards that this falls under.
Okay.
So some of the fixtures here in the cutoffs are, or excuse me, not the cutoffs, but the fixture legend versus the specification sheets here are hard to follow. As Jeff mentioned, the sight lines, or the site signs are not going to really provide site lighting. They're just going to light the sign. But some of the green and then some of the yellows, the round ones, we understand the locations, of course, but trying to understand what fixture each of those are representing and then how far the illumination is. Some of the fixtures that we have seen come before us, for example, have descriptions and lumen levels based on their fixture, mounting height, and cutoff style. So when we see some of those, we can grasp the amount of area that they're going to light. So that helps with us.
I believe some of that information was included in the specific cut sheets with the updated lighting plan. It had the specific product number from the manufacturer as well as all of the electrical draw, output, wattage, and lumens. But if you need further information, I'd be glad to provide it.
Yeah, we see some of those cut sheets. Shannon, is it possible for you to throw some of those up on the screen here? Sure. So if you were to scroll on, I guess a little bit towards the bottom of that page, yeah. So these sheets show the fixtures at the bottom of the previous page and then the last page. It shows the fixture, it gives lumen output, it gives wattage, but none of these seem to be selected on these sheets, and I don't know which fixture this is on your legend. So I think that's some of the questions that we're looking to have answered, and some of them will,
on the top of that cut sheet, I believe it tells you the watt equivalent, and that is what I referenced on the physical rendering. Trouble finding.
Yeah, that was the part that I couldn't follow, and it doesn't seem, Jeff, you weren't able to make that connection either. Is that where you and I are on the same page?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I think I see what he's referring to is there are two sizes delivered from 2,300 lumens to 16,000 100 lumens, replacing 70 to 400 watt HID luminaires. But that's not telling us which fixture you're going to pick. And if you scroll down and you pick the largest of the frame, their TWR2 frame, that is 16,100 lumen output, design output. Input wattage is 112, and there's some lumen efficiencies in there. I mean, that is an extremely powerful light. If you put that on your building, it's especially in that forward throw, I can almost guarantee you might have some complaints. It'd be technically violation of the full cutoff ordinance, and it's very intense. So
I will put together a more specific diagram highlighting the exact manufactured number of the equipment used and the exact location on the building of them, as well as the specific lumen output in relation to the height of the unit on the building.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be best, I mean, if you get a photometric layout, contact your electrical contractor, who would be putting these up for you, and they can take that information at the supply house, and they will generate a photometric plan. So we know how far off the building, what the illumination levels, so that we can look at the other ordinances, or other criteria in our ordinance about light trespass and property line, uniformity ratio, not exceeding foot candles.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions from board members? How about the odor mitigation information? I thought that was informative. It gave us some information here, and this is really supplemental to the original information in the packet. And this is, and Shannon, you can confirm that this is also something that Code Officer Toomey reviews and is part of his process and enforcement as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. Would you like me to pull up the odor mitigation plan on the screen?
Unless board members have a specific question, I don't think that's necessary, but Jeff, go ahead.
I had kind of read through it, and, you know, it's informative in the sense of the three components that they're choosing to use. It's not really, you know, engineered in the sense of we don't know if the building's under positive pressure, or they're just choosing to try to filter all the air inside the building with these three devices, and kind of choosing their rate of air travel through them with fan control. So I guess that's, you know, kind of up to you. He did bring up a point that he has not had a reported odor complaint in the time since his 2018, I think it was. So even though it's not necessarily maybe engineered, they're doing it on their own, and it seems like they're doing it effectively. So.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, this isn't a new odor mitigation plan for this
No, this
use.
is not. This is an existing odor mitigation plan. This is also something that I have consulted and established in over a dozen facilities throughout 3 different states, licensed all 3 states with 0 complaints and full success.
Right, so this was more for our information as to what you're doing as opposed to what you're proposing.
Correct. I was told that I didn't have enough included information on the last planning board meeting, so I gathered some of the information that I've used on consulting jobs with HVAC professionals and engineers, and gathered a more concise explanation of what we're doing on site for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Any other questions from board members? So it looks like Tyler, I guess Jeff and I are looking for a little bit of tightening up on those light fixtures, a little bit more clarity on those. I'm satisfied with the information on the odor mitigation, your parking layout, the signage. You had those 2 documents. The traffic peer review was favorable, so I didn't have any questions there. I'm not sure how the rest of the board feels, but I guess if that's our last piece, then I guess we would look for, at our next meeting, Shannon, our draft findings of fact for the board to review and conditions of approval on this one, along with the, like I said, updating and just tightening up on that lighting information. But any other discussion points for board members?
So adequate lighting for safety without glare on the neighbors.
Yep, we will provide something to highlight what is currently existing and then the updated, more efficient electrical output of new fixtures. Thank you.
So with that, do we want to make a motion to continue review to our next available planning board meeting?
Is our next meeting next week?
We have one next week. I'm not sure what that agenda looks like. I'm not sure if this is tentative to be presented with conditions and draft findings for review. Shannon?
So currently, there are 5 items on the agenda. If you add 89 Industrial Park Road, there will be 6.
Well, given, if the board is, I guess if this is where we're at this evening, I think that agenda item can be added to the next meeting, if the board agrees.
Mr. Chair, I move to continue review of 89 Industrial Park Road to the August 20th meeting.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
I'll second.
Thank you for the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion to continue review to August 20th with looking for the additional information discussed to date and to review draft findings of fact and conditions of approval? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I will vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to continue to August 20th. All right, thank you. So with that, we will move to our next item on the agenda. This is item 5F, and this is for 94 Industrial Park Road, map 72, lot 12, and this is for the conversion of medical marijuana dispensary. And this is a public hearing and continued application review for site plan and conditional use proposal for the conversion of an existing operations to medical marijuana dispensary as outlined in the application materials within the industrial zoning district. Shannon?
Yes, thank you. So this is a site plan and conditional use review for the registered dispensary use at 94 Industrial Park Road. No exterior changes are proposed, and currently the site is being used for medical marijuana cultivation. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Shannon. Any questions for Shannon at this time, board members? So with that, Tyler, any update on this item?
I believe since the last planning board meeting, the only topic of discussion here was the odor mitigation, which was the same plan as included in the 89 draft. If there's any further questions regarding that or our current existing operations, be glad to answer them.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time? Jim?
Just to be clear, so this is not going to involve people coming to the facility to, like they would at 89 Industrial Park Road?
Correct. There'll be no direct-to-patient dispensing at this site, just our typical wholesale business-to-business transactions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any additional questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, the fire department questions, I didn't see answers to that. If there were any hazardous materials and if Ripple Wellness is using all of the grow rooms or if other rooms are leased to other growers.
At this time, just Ripple Wellness is utilizing the entire cultivation space. That's the primary reason for this license conversion. In past vernacular through the Office of Cannabis Policy, we've needed to house multiple caregivers at this location to occupy the canopy space. This dispensary license through the Office of Cannabis Policy allows Ripple Wellness to single-handedly operate and fulfill the entire canopy at 94 Industrial Park Road. So it'll just be a single tenant there, and then there's no hazardous chemicals being stored on site.
All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, if there are no more questions for the applicant, this is intended to be a public hearing, right?
Yes.
So I'll move to open the public hearing for 94 Industrial Park Road for site plan and conditional use review.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second.
Second by Jeff, thank you. Any additional discussions on opening the public hearing for 94 Industrial Park Road? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to open the public hearing. If anyone is here this evening to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record and give us your thoughts, questions, or concerns, and we'll collect them all and respond at the conclusion.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one coming forward for the public hearing, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jim. Any discussion? Those in favor of closing the public hearing, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to close the public hearing. Back to board discussion. Any remaining questions or concerns for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, since there are no other questions, I think it's appropriate for us to continue this to the next available meeting. I don't know if August 20th to make a seventh item on that, but this would seem to be pretty straightforward, provided we could get the draft findings of fact and conditions of approval by then, if that's possible.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Was that Carrie Lynn or Joyce? Sorry. Joyce. Second by Joyce. So motion, Jim, Jeff, sorry.
So just to be clear, Jim, your motion was intending to direct staff to formulate draft findings of facts
And continue to the 20th.
and continue.
Yes.
So motion made and second to continued review of this application to August 20th to review draft findings of fact and conditions of approval. Any additional discussion? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. All right, thank you. All right, our next item on the evening agenda is 5G, and this is a petition for a zoning text amendment request. And this is a request the addition of adult use cannabis manufacturing to the industrial zoning district. And this is presented by Cosmic Solutions and Zero Gravity Cannabis in Cohen, Maine Law. And this is a continued public hearing and a continued petition review. Again, in the industrial zoning district, and this is to add adult use cannabis manufacturing. Shannon, anything to add?
Thank you. The only thing that I'd like to add is if the board at the end of this presentation feels comfortable, we can move on to creating a report up to the city council. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. And the applicant's here with us this evening.
Good evening. My name is Jill Cohen. I am a partner in the Energy, Technology, and Natural Resources Group at Verrill Dana out of Portland, representing Cosmic Solutions tonight. This is Brian Mantle. He is one of the owners. You've now met 3 out of 4 owners of Cosmic Solutions. And so we are here tonight in support of our petition. I apologize for not responding in writing to a memo that's been included in your packet. I did only see it as I came in tonight. I wanted to address a couple of things on it, and this is the memo dated August 13th, 2024, from Emily, and it excerpts an opinion from the town's attorney. And I just wanted to respond to a couple of things in it, although I do think we ultimately reach the same conclusion. Attorney Murphy cites 22 MRS Section 2429D as the source of local authority on the adult use program. That site is specific to Maine's medical use of cannabis. The proper citation should be MRS Title 28B, Sections 401, 402, 1A. So those are the sections that, of course, put the authority in the town's hands to opt in for adult use. Two other corrections. Our petition was very specific in that we were only requesting that the town opt in for manufacturing for adult use. There are references to retail and dispensing product to the adult use market. The dispensing of adult use product doesn't appear in our petition nor in my June 2023 letter. So I think I just wanted to clarify and be very clear, because usually retail is the hot button issue when we're talking about opting in. But state law does provide that a municipality can opt in for none, one, or all adult use license categories. And just to refresh your recollection, we are asking that Saco opt in for manufacturing because my client owns an extraction lab and wants to be able to use that lab for both programs, both to process their own material that would come over from their adult use cultivation facility in Scarborough, and also to process medical cannabis under their dispensary license, which they already have at 74 Industrial Park Road here in Saco. There would be no public-facing change in any way. This is more an internal change of the facility. Their facility just recently went through a relicensing process. They brought in an engineer to certify the facility. It passed all the tests and checked all the boxes, and I believe I did provide that information to the planning department so that they could review the most recent engineer certifications of the facility. Ultimately, Attorney Murphy references asking staff whether there's an option for us to modify our request to allow only for those businesses currently operating as medical dispensaries to convert to this specific use. That is what we asked for in our petition. So I said ultimately we reached the same conclusion, that that is simply what we were asking. Existing manufacturing facilities be allowed to manufacture for both programs. So we do reach the same suggestion, although maybe from different avenues. So that is what we're asking, is just that Saco opt in for this one use only, adult use manufacturing, and that existing operators be given the opportunity to convert, not even convert, but just to add that license category. At the state level, medical dispensaries can co-locate with adult use operations. So they do have to put a co-location plan in place, and that's just basically making sure that biomass and products that are developed for the medical market stay in the medical market, and biomass and products that are being produced for the adult use market stay in the adult use market. Usually that's as simple as color coding or designating specific days where the lab will run for medical versus adult use. So all this to say, no outward public-facing change. This is just sort of flipping a switch and allowing them to use their lab to its highest best purpose to manufacture product for both markets. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Brian's here to answer any questions you may have, and we're hoping to move this forward.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just am thinking that I should disclose the fact that the city attorney is one of my law partners.
I am
so.
aware. I mentioned it to Brian earlier, and of course, all respect to his opinion, I did just have to make those couple of corrections. But I am aware that you work in the same office.
Oh, and I'm not offering any opinion on the city attorney's memo, which I just saw this evening too. But I think the issue of whether I should be a decision maker on this should be discussed and addressed. I mean, I think I can be neutral since I saw this at the same time everyone else did, but I certainly want to give the applicant and the other members of the board the information.
Sure, if you're asking if the board make a determination if we feel that you can make an objective decision.
Right, and I apologize for not mentioning that before you came up to the podium.
That's okay. I don't see a reason why you shouldn't participate here. I don't know how other board members feel, but
I feel the same as Matt. I have no reason to, I think you should be a part of it.
not seeing any opposition.
No, like I said, I was aware when I stepped up, and maybe I should have mentioned it, but, you know, as an attorney, I know that you'll follow the law, so I'm not concerned at all about you participating.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Board members, do we have any questions for the applicant based on any of the additional testimony or maybe even any questions for staff on Attorney Murphy's memo as well? Jim?
Mr. Chair, I've read the city attorney's memo here a few times. I'm still not sure what he's saying. And I don't mean that as a criticism of the city attorney. I don't quite understand what he's saying. I think what he's saying is that the language that was proposed for the zoning amendment might have unintended consequences and inadvertently allow retail sales of adult use marijuana. So if that's the case, then it would seem that the language of and if that's not what we want, then it would seem that the language that was proposed for that ordinance amendment would need to be altered in some way, correct?
Yes, if I may, I could not.
Sorry, could you hit
sorry.
the
I
mic?
could not find anywhere in our proposed amendment where we used the word dispense in relation to adult use. I would also point out that 28B 401 and 402 1A require you to explicitly opt in for each of those uses. There, in my opinion, there would be no inadvertent opting in for retail. You would have to have an ordinance authorizing adult use retail sales in Saco. But again, I went back and I reviewed our petition, which is from June of 2023, and I reviewed my letter that went with it, and I could not find what he was referring to. And I do understand the caution. Everybody wants to get this right, and nobody wants to accidentally opt in for a use that the town doesn't have an appetite for. But again, I do think that that will require very specific ordinance language stating that Saco is going to authorize adult use retail. And I can look at it again. I did use the word dispensary quite a few times because it's already in your ordinance language and they are a dispensary licensee, but I did not find anything about dispensing product out of a manufacturing facility because they would not be authorized to do that other than wholesale.
So at the very end of the memo seems to be a staff suggestion about modifying your request. And I assume you've thought about that. And do you have modified language or as part of your request that would be able to address that clearly?
Again, I do believe it is exactly what we asked for. That's why I say I think we've reached the same conclusion. And I can respond in writing. Like I said, I like you saw this when I got here tonight. Ordinarily, I would have responded in writing, and I'm happy to do that. But that is what we literally asked for, was that licensees in the I-zone be able to use their manufacturing facility for both adult use and medical. If what Saco is looking for is to say that those who are licensed as of the enactment of a new ordinance potentially would be the only people eligible, then yes, we might need to tighten up that language. But that's why I said I do think we ended up in the same place.
Yeah, Jim, sorry, Joe, I'm looking back at the June 30th, 2023 letter from Cohen Law, and I mean, right toward the bottom of the page, it says, this petition for zoning amendment, if approved, would require Saco to opt in for one adult use category, manufacturing. Opting in for manufacturing, and then this is bold print, does not require Saco to also opt in for other adult use license categories, such as retail stores, cultivation, or testing labs. So it does seem like the applicant was very clear as to their request to just opt in for manufacturing.
Well, and I recall that. I remember that was, we had a discussion about that at the prior meeting. And you were pretty confident that the language accomplished what you needed, but didn't go too far. But that's why I'm just puzzled by the city attorney's memo, because it appears to contradict that.
And I want to be super respectful about that. This is all I do, is represent cannabis businesses. I know the statutory language inside and out. So when I saw Title 22, 24, 29D, I've cited that over and over again in towns to remind them of their authority to regulate caregivers in the medical program. And so when I saw that citation, I knew that that was not the correct citation of your local authority. So it may just be a mistake. If you look on the Office of Cannabis Policy website under the Adult Use tab, you'll see a list of all the towns that have opted in, and they have it on a grid. And it has each use, retail, cultivation, manufacturing, testing lab. And for each town, there's a Y or an N, yes, no, whether or not they've opted in for that use. So I am 100% sure that a town can opt in for whatever they want. They can opt in for one. Kennebunk is a great example. They have only opted in for testing labs because when the program launched, there were no testing labs in the state of Maine, and our regulator at the time really worked closely with the town to get that lab up and running, and they didn't want retail, they didn't want cultivation, they didn't want manufacturing. They have only opted in for testing labs. You look at Portland, they've opted in across the board. If Saco chooses to opt in for manufacturing, yours will say no, no, yes, no, across the line, because it'll be no retail, no cultivation, yes on manufacturing, and no on testing labs. I mean, unless you want testing labs. That's a whole different can of worms. You would love to have a testing lab here. It's a great business.
Jill, can I interrupt you for a
Of
second?
course.
Could you speak directly into
sorry.
our audio is not picking you up. So
Usually I think I'm so loud when I'm on the mic, so sorry about that. But there is precedent in so many other towns that have opted in for one use.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say I'm kind of very split on this. It's very hard, and no disrespect to either our city solicitor or to you and your expertise. I just feel like it's the whole legal side of this is a very technical thing, and I'm weighing out that here is an operation in our community that exists. They've already made a huge capital investment. This apparent, what appears to me to be a slight change, would allow continued use or more maximizing the use of the time of the investment they've made. And having seen a couple of these, this is a huge investment, and it's part of our industrial park. It has more taxable personal property for the city because of these big investments. The questions that I've asked, it seems like they've came back with their engineering reports that they're as safe. I wouldn't say they're safe because there's always a risk, but they've checked a lot of the boxes, and they've had a lot of people scrutinize this. Because I do worry about our first responders, should there be something that goes wrong there. But that's kind of why we have it in the industrial park, right? You have it in the industrial park, you're positioned. But as far as, what we're opting in for, on all these legal opinions, it's kind of overwhelming to me. I kind of feel like, we're supposed to be offering up a letter to the council. Let's pass it off, even split decision, pass it off and let them deal with it, and they can go into executive session and they can hash it out with the attorneys or multiple attorneys that might be better versed. But I mean, as far as we are for what our normal review is, I'm kind of feeling like this has gone as far as it has. I mean, they're there, they exist, they're asking what it sounds like just to maximize the use of their already made investment and time. To me, it doesn't seem like a big deal from a planning board point of view, but the legal side of it is well beyond me, and that for that reason, I'd probably say, I'm kind of a no. Let's let people that can have more time and effort in the legal side with the council review it. But I don't think we need to keep kicking it around our agenda at this point. I think we could, draft up a recommendation to the board, maybe that we're split, but as long as they, operational-wise, functionally-wise, I don't see an issue of continuing to, if they can run 20 hours a week or 60 hours a week, it's probably better to keep that equipment running than shut it down and sit idle. So those are kind of my thoughts, and maybe we can, as a board, draft up some sort of a recommendation for council. And like I said, it'd probably be split. I'll probably be a no, just because there's too much legal unknown that I'm not comfortable with. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions or thoughts from board members? Shannon?
I do just want to share a portion of the zoning text amendment that I think is what's causing confusion for Tim Murphy. I believe that it's section B1, specifically the underlined statement, and where authorized, a co-located adult use manufacturing facility may only dispense properly packaged, inspected, and authorized adult use marijuana. I think that's what's causing the confusion that led to the memo, and I apologize for not mentioning it sooner. I also am only familiarizing myself with the memo currently.
Thank you, Shannon.
That's where it is. Thank you.
Yeah, and this has caught my attention too, and I think that's where Attorney Murphy is coming from as well. And we always, of course, appreciate his input. I think in this scenario, it's made it a little bit more confusing, but again, we've talked about this section before, and I do read it as, it seems very specific to me, and where authorized. That seems key to me, because Saco is not authorizing retail sales. So it says where authorized, but we haven't authorized it. And then it continues, a co-located adult use manufacturing facility may only dispense properly packaged. So there's a piece in there, and in fairness, if it's specific to a future adjustment or adoption or amendment that may take place, it's in there, but right now Saco doesn't authorize it. So it seems like it's clear but strategic about if Saco does opt in and they do allow retail, it's in there that it's authorized, but it's not authorized yet.
I think we could add one word and fix it. Wholesale, after dispense. I was attempting to mirror your existing language, which I always do when I propose an ordinance change. So if you look at the line before, it does just mirror your dispensary language. And if we just added the word wholesale, that would take care of that.
Sure. Yeah, that would be even more clear.
So or just eliminate the word dispense at the very bottom and just say sell wholesale, right? I mean, that's, because if the concern is the word dispense having only to do with medical marijuana, and this isn't medical marijuana, then just use a different word, I would think. So sell wholesale would accomplish it.
I love it. Yes, that would be great. Less words. And if I may just add one thing, and I appreciate you recognizing their investment, and I should have pointed this out earlier, Brian and his business partners, along with one other gentleman, own the building that they're in. So it is a significant financial investment.
Thank you. So with that, I agree with Jeff's opinion. We have spoken about this at length. We have some direction and opinion from Attorney Murphy. So I agree the next steps would be to have staff draft up a draft memo for the board. What's the word I'm looking for? But a draft finding or a draft recommendation.
Recommendation to council.
Draft recommendation to council based on the board's findings and direction and recommendation for council. So that, Shannon, could be our next step. And is that tentative on any agenda coming up in the future? We've added 2 for next week already, so we're up to 8.
Yes,
or
we would
9.
be up to 8 if we place it. And just thinking if we wanted to draft a recommendation, I'd just like to hear a little bit about what you would like to recommend.
Of course, and with that recommendation, I think it would probably be appropriate to have Attorney Murphy, I guess, review it if that's not standard procedure. It seems to be a good idea. And the draft recommendation would be, I'm sure the board could provide a little straw poll here if we would. So board members, if someone would make maybe a motion would be appropriate to say they forward a positive recommendation or not forward a positive recommendation. Maybe we keep it simple and we could do a vote and go from there.
Well, I think with the change in that word, they'll eliminate the word dispense and indicate instead it should read sell wholesale. I would move that we review and then forward a positive recommendation to the council to support this zoning amendment.
So Jim would move to forward a favorable recommendation with the verbiage adjustment discussed to date on section 168-4, section B1, along the lines of removing the word dispense and speak more directly about wholesale sales. And that's with agreement from the applicant.
So if that was a motion, I'll second it.
So motion made and seconded made by Jim, seconded by Joyce. So those in favor of the motion to forward a favorable recommendation to City Council based on the adjustments discussed this evening. Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
I would vote yes. So it would be a 5-1 Shannon for a favorable recommendation, given the discussion and testimony and adjustments discussed this evening.
My only question is there any further information that you would want from Tim Murphy before I drafted this recommendation or report?
Board members, Jeff, thoughts?
I mean, I guess, like I said, from us, from the planning board point of view, from site plan or from use, there's no issue. I don't see any issue at all. I think this is strictly policy and ordinance, and it belongs at council for their legal review, and that's the only reason I'm in the negative, because I just think the legal technicalities of the words and all of this dispensary and medical marijuana stuff is very difficult for a layperson to follow when they're using dispense and recreational and adult use, and what you think the meanings are on face value aren't. So that's the only reason. I just think it's extremely legal, technical, and I think just get it to council, and that was the reason for my no vote, so they know that it's a mixed opinion, and let's forward it on. But I think for us, as far as the use of the building, I see absolutely zero problem. They're just going to run the machinery that they already have, that they're permitted to run longer. I think that's perfectly fine. So.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff. Does that help, Shannon? And I think that is and the great thing is we have our council liaison, Phil, here, so he's had a lot of the discussion firsthand. So I think he's understands the board is it's concerned, I think, mostly about the adult retail use, and that's what we're looking to not at this time have, but the manufacturing component in a co-located facility, as long as the verbiage is appropriate, I think that's where we're at. Yep.
Yes, that provides very clear direction for me. So thank you.
Thank you. All right.
If I may, first of all, thank you very much for your thoughtful consideration all of these times. Where are we headed next, Shannon? What happens next?
So the next thing that will happen, actually, that is something that we do need to clarify, is when are you expecting a draft for the recommendation to come back? Is it going to be next week, or is it going to be September 3rd?
Well, sure, so that would be we have to make another motion to continue review and review the draft recommendation that staff is going to put together. So that's sort of where we started talking about the dates and the agendas. So the agenda sounds fairly full for the 20th, is that?
That is correct. We are at 7 items.
Mr. Chair, I don't really think us approving a draft letter is a big deal. I would move that we continue the review of the review of this application, the Cohen Law application, to the August 20th meeting, which time will we review the draft letter to the City Council.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jim, for the second. So motion made and seconded to continue application review to August 20th and review the draft recommendation provided by staff at that time. Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you so much for your
We'll see you next
consideration.
week.
So we have a few items left on our agenda this evening. And if the board is in support, so we have, I'm looking at time here. So we, per our SOP, we don't take up new business after 9 o'clock unless the board makes a motion to do so. We're getting close to that time, and adjournment at 9:30. So our few items we have left on the agenda this evening, we have an application of completeness review for 4 Lerner Road. We have a continued application review for 872 Portland Road. And we have a continued public hearing and continued application for 969 Portland Road. And Shannon, if I don't mean to jump around, but if the board is in support, item 5J, 969 Portland Road, is that accurate in our packet here this evening, that applicant would like to table to the August 20th meeting?
That is correct.
And that is not a new item on the agenda, but that's already part of our 9 that we have currently? Or would that be 10?
Hold on one second. Let me just verify that with Lisa. Yes. So 969 Portland Road was already preemptively added to the August 20th agenda because of the requested table.
Okay. So if the board wouldn't mind, we could take up item 5J and make a motion and address that one for the sake of time, if the board feels necessary, or...
Mr. Chair, I move that we table item J for 969 Portland Road per the applicant's request to the April 20th meeting.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
Sorry, August 20th.
August, yes. Did you say April? I don't think they're going to agree to that. Thank you for the motion.
Second.
Second by Jim. Thank you. So motion made and seconded to move item 5J, 969 Portland Road, to the August 20th meeting at the request of the applicant. Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. All right, so we'll move on back into our normal order here. So item 5H, this is 4 Lerner Road. Excuse me. Would the board make a motion to continue review of agenda items beyond 9 o'clock this evening and set a stopping point for some time?
I move to continue after 9 o'clock, but to stop at 9:30.
I second.
Motion made and second to continue review of application items this evening beyond 9 o'clock, but stop at 9:30. Those in favor? Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to go beyond 9 p.m. and stop at 9:30. All right, apologies. Here we go. Item 5H, 4 Lerner Road, map 69, lot 8-2. This is a proposed facility expansion presented by Whipping Post LLC and Sebago Technics, and this is a application completeness review for site plan and conditional review at, as I said, 69, map 69, lot 8-2. This is a 18,620 square foot warehouse building and a 2,400 square foot self-storage building with associated site improvements. Do you have anything to add, Shannon?
Thank you. The only thing that I have to add is that the planning department included in the memo a application checklist for this application. We have found it mostly complete, though we have requested some updates to the application form itself and also the site plans because there is new ownership on the property. Any other questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Shannon. That myself was the only question I had. We had that information, but that was one of the confirmations I wanted to. We had it. It was just updated ownership information. Any other questions for Shannon by board members? And the applicant's here with us this evening to give us a brief update or presentation.
Yes. Thank you for your time, Board and Mr. Chair. My name is Chris Taylor with Sebago Technics. I'll try to keep this brief. This project was in front of the board last year. It went through, received completeness, and went through reviews by city engineer, traffic consultant, landscape consultant, lighting consultant. Most of those issues had already been worked out. As I said, the application was deemed complete. The previous owners of the land and were kind of evaluating alternatives to the site. They decided that the application that was submitted previously and the application that's in front of you was the best use for the site and wish to continue that. Where we made a new application to the board due to the time that had lapsed between when the last time it was with the board and when we came back before. We made the application, and then after the application was submitted to the city of Saco, the land had sold to the new owner, Whipping Post LLC, who is looking to continue with the proposed application as proposed without any changes. So that would be continuing with the 8,000 square foot warehouse building and the 2,000 square foot addition of the self-storage, which is an existing use on the site. You know, I think there's pretty minimal comments from city engineer and other staff. Because we had worked through that previously, and we're happy to update owner information on plans and all of that to make sure it conforms with current ownership. And that's basically all I've available for any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. Any questions from board members for the applicant at this time? Yes, Jeff.
So what's the intended, the 8,000 square foot warehouse? Is that going to be like rented as one lump sum to an entity? Or is it intended to be kind of like a smaller flex space, like a little further down where contractors rent certain bays of the warehouse?
It's designed to accommodate both. I guess it's a little bit between, the sizing of it's a little bit bigger than the traditional light industrial or contractor flex space, but it's not really a full-size warehouse. It does have a loading dock associated with it that could, they're trying to see how the internal could be configured to accommodate 2 tenants, one on each side of the loading dock that can, they can both utilize that single loading dock. Or it could be, one tenant has access to the loading dock and the other one just has drive-in access, which is traditional with your contractor flex space.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, actually, I have a question for Shannon, perhaps. Can we find this application complete if the names on the application need to be changed?
That is a great question. And so me and Emily worked on this checklist together. Originally, it had it for follow-up that the form needed to be updated, but it has since been checked off with just a note that it has to be updated. So it is my belief that Emily is fully comfortable having this application found complete, knowing that in the future, both the application and the site plans will be updated accordingly.
Is the waiver for off-street parking still correct?
Yes, we are still applying for a waiver to reduce the number of parking spaces.
Okay. So as a reminder, board members, we'll need to address that waiver first. And that was one of the items that I was looking to chase down to. Can you briefly give us the number that you're looking for?
Yes, it's there is a parking table on the site plan showing the calculated or the required and the provided parking spaces for both the existing contractor flex space, which gets classified as a warehouse under the parking table, and the proposed additional warehouse space. So the site under the ordinance requires 53 parking spaces. We're requesting a waiver to reduce that number to 28 parking spaces.
Oh, there it is, yep. Board members, any thoughts or discussions on the waiver?
Just refresh my memory. Did we get far enough last time to grant the waiver for the number of parking spaces? I remember the plans for this property. I don't remember that discussion.
My recollection is that I don't know if the waiver if there was ever a motion on the waiver. My recollection is that there was, I guess I'll say, general agreement to grant the waiver. And with the site has, ample parking space or impervious area, paved space that you can move vehicles around if needed to kind of accommodate extra flow. They're just not able to stay there full time without impeding on certain other traffic movements. So there's plenty of flexibility to have temporary parking storage as vehicles are moving around the site, or if there's a slight increase or extra parking on the site. Just hard to actually identify those as permanent parking spaces.
Jeff?
I guess I have a little bit of concern. It's hard to feel like it's appropriate to grant a waiver for parking spaces when it's a flex space, right? And, part of me is drawn to, at least there's flex space, because I was like, more self-storage units. And it's like, this is supposed to be our transitional zone from business into the industrial park, and it seems like all we have is self-storage. So it's appealing to me to see that flex space, but then I start to get a little bit nervous when I look at the turning movements that they did. It's like a 40-foot straight truck. It's not a tractor-trailer truck. And it does make the maneuvers around the building, but if that is to be a light distribution center or a very small transfer dock of some sort, and we don't have the parking spaces, can we be really congesting this lot to be non-functional? I mean, delivery drivers are not very happy when they can't make the turning movements to a dock and they have to go try to find the owner of the red car that's in the way. And at the same time, we're always trying to minimize impervious area, right? We have all these balances, and to me, it's a little bit hard to consider granting a waiver, not knowing what the intended occupancy is going to be of that space, just as it's hard for the applicant to come before us and say, hey, we want to build a space and we need available space. We don't know what's going to be for, and we're not going to grant a waiver, so they can't move forward. I guess I'm kind of a little bit stuck in my thoughts here. Because it sounds like, did I hear you correctly? It was 53 required spaces by math, by the intended use, and you wanted to reduce that to like 28. 28. Yeah.
And we're well aware that that it is, below the required per ordinance. And when this space goes out and gets occupied, the tenants have to be aware of the parking that's available on the site and be comfortable that that's going to meet their demands. It's going to be very clear that parking out on Leonard Road is not going to be allowed and has to stay within the site. So the tenants have to, the use has to kind of accommodate what's available to the site as well. So that's going to be considered when.
Right, you're limiting your potential.
Yes.
Your potential
and that's
tenants.
the owner is aware of that. So.
Yeah, I do remember that discussion now, actually, the idea of buyer beware.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other board member questions? I mean, it's just, we're just talking about paint on the asphalt, right? We're not, I can support less parking spaces if it helps reduce the pavement area. But I don't really see the pavement area being reduced to reduce parking spaces. There's it's all asphalt out there, correct?
Yeah, there's a significant, there's, the site is paved now currently between the existing buildings that are out there.
So if they need more parking, I mean, it could be as simple as an amendment and just show, the correct turning movements with some new paint on the asphalt. So I see both sides. Jeff?
Can you offer me a little clarity? The proposed self-storage building, is that a traditional self-storage building, like with roll-up doors every 4 feet along the whole perimeter of it? Because I didn't see the side profile, looked like it was a solid wall. So people would need to be able to access all 4 sides of that building to get to their respective units. Is that correct?
Yes, there will be roll-up doors on all sides of the self-storage expansion building, which I'm not sure, I don't think we actually provided. There are renderings that were provided that show the self-storage expansion as well. There's not proposed to be doors off the end of it, though. If you look at the last rendered image of the site that was provided.
So we'll get, when we see you again, we'll have updated renderings and/or elevations on, I guess, on the two buildings. We see that now, we have it, it gives us a good indication as to where it's going, but those will be updated. That's sort of what you're alluding to.
I'm not sure, updated for,
Well, let's say we jump to that for a moment, Jeff. So we have the 2D graphics of
the warehouse.
The warehouse building.
Yep.
Shows the overhead doors and shows single pass doors.
Mm-hmm.
The rendering shows more storefront with glass doors and side light and transoms. So there's a little discrepancy there. So,
Okay.
and then we have two large wall faces, 130 feet and 140 feet, with no breaks or anything like that. They're just flat wall planes. So that'll have to get updated to meet the design guidelines. But then we only see the expansion for the self-storage in a few of the rendering vantages. And then in one of them, the gable end of that, you're saying that there'll be some roll-up doors there.
Saying there's not roll-up doors on
There's
the end.
not,
Yes.
so the rendering is correct?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were saying the rendering was incorrect. So, Jeff, it sounds like you were alluding to, or where you were going with that maybe there's some potential parking, or how do where do the tenants or occupants of those units park their vehicles while they're there? Is that where you were going with it?
I was just trying to get a better understanding of the site. Self-storage units, typically people aren't occupying, they're not there during the day, they might make one trip and leave. I was just kind of wondering, what that building use was going to be, and if it could be parked and used as parking in some capacity, but if it's other person's rented access, I don't think you can really put parking in front of it.
All right. So back to the original topic of the waiver. So there's a waiver request. We've discussed that. The request is a reduction in parking spaces from 53 to 28.
Through the chair, we have ordinances for a reason, and I find that 53 required is, again, for a reason, and to split it by 50%, I think is pushing it.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn. Any additional thoughts from board members on the waiver?
I guess I'm thinking it's a little different when you're talking about self-storage because people come and go, and even though it's a fair amount of square footage, the building is unlikely to be fully occupied all at the same time. And I agree with Matt's comment that there's a lot of pavement here, and additional parking could be added with some striping if it turns out it's needed. But I'm of the opinion that the applicant's limiting himself, and I'm not going to be that paternalistic and second guess them. If they want to limit their parking, then they're going to be limiting the potential tenants that they can have. So I'd be in favor of the waiver.
Thank you, Joyce. So as a reminder, the self-storage component, there aren't any parking spaces required for self-storage. This is just falling under the warehouses piece. Correct, Shannon?
That's correct.
Yeah. Jeff?
So an 8,000 square foot warehouse needs 53 parking spaces?
Isn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Isn't it 18,000?
Yeah, that's right.
18,000 square foot, right?
Yep.
I mean, but to touch base on Carrie Lynn's point, yes, we have ordinances for a reason, and I kind of, yeah, I tend to lean that way as well. I mean, we want that baseline. And I don't know how much of the self-storage unit they have to cut down to create the parking spaces that they need. I just hate to have what could be a really good opportunity for the applicant and for the city for a nice flex space to be available, to be hampered with limited access, and then you don't have the most desirable of tenants that could fill in there. I'm not really supporting, at this point, the waiver. I don't think that the site has been presented to me in such a way that we need to have a waiver for 20-something parking spaces. I don't know if they could rework it. I mean, you obviously want it to be financially viable, but I see a lot more value in that warehouse space than in the self-storage space for the growth that we want in that area. Our target goal is to follow our comprehensive plan and have those growth. Having self-storage units isn't really promoting the type of growth that we're looking for. So at this point, I think maybe if the applicant could come back with a little bit of a modification where we might be able to fulfill the parking requirements or get a little bit closer or much closer, I would be in favor of that at this point than granting a waiver at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So the 2,400 square foot extension, that's a self-storage building. And then the other two smaller buildings, those are that's the 7,200 square feet of warehouse. Is that those two buildings combined?
Yes, that's correct. So there's 4 existing buildings on the site. 2 of them are self-storage, and they're labeled such on the plan. And then there's 2 buildings to the south of the site that are labeled metal buildings. Those are the existing contractor flex space, light industrial buildings that are 7,200 square feet combined.
Okay. Any additional discussion on the waiver? So perhaps a motion to wrap that up and give the applicant direction.
Sure, I'll make a motion to grant the request to reduce the number of parking spaces from 53 to 28.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Joyce and seconded by Jim to grant the waiver. Any additional discussion? Matt?
No.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
No.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
I vote yes. The motion fails 3-3 due to a tie. So when we see you again, we'll look for a revised parking layout to meet that 53 requirement. So, and that was the only waiver, that's correct, right?
That's correct, on the only waiver.
Okay. All right, so with that, board members, we've addressed the waiver.
Can I ask a question on the waiver? Is there,
Yes.
can I get, I guess, an opinion on if the board would be willing to grant a waiver for, to reduce the parking, but to a closer amount to what's required? If that's, could be considered, or if the direction is to come in with what is required by code.
Sure, so board members' thoughts on that requirement? Is it do board members feel the number of parking spaces must be met, or the request of the waiver was too far from the requirement? I guess I'm going to look to board members that didn't vote for the waiver.
I guess I would be okay if it was reduced slightly, not as dramatic as it was. So if it came down 5, 10 spaces, I don't think that'd be an issue.
So the half, Matt, you're saying the half was too much?
Yes,
too much
correct.
Too far removed from the requirement?
I agree. I think that's one of my biggest problems, is that it was reduced so drastically. I think coming down just a little bit is worth a waiver. It's not half of it.
Yeah, so the providing 52% or so of the requirement was, that's where you were at. If it were closer. Jeff, any thoughts on?
I mean, I kind of echo that if it was a closer number, I just think that maybe a little more review, they might be able to find something that might functionally flow better. These turning radii aren't ideal for a truck to back in and out. Maybe if they relocated the dock to the side, they could free up some parking spaces in the front, and they wouldn't need those turning movements. I think, they do have a kind of a blank canvas. They can move some stuff. I think I would like to see something creative, maybe a more effective use to touch on, Mr. Chair, you pointed out the amount of impervious area. It's still all paved, right? Maybe if we could reposition turning movements so that it was more efficiently used, or shorten the building a little bit and then allow some parking. I just think that maybe a fresh look might make the site more optimal, and maybe they could come back with the target number or at least close to it, so there's only a small percentage of waiver request. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, yes, it looks like the board would entertain a waiver for a reduction, just not where it's at now. Any other comments from board members on the application? So moving to completeness review. As far as the remaining documents provided, any questions, thoughts, or concerns?
Well, I mean, at some point, we want to talk about design standards and the long stretch of blank wall that's being proposed for the warehouse. I know, that's not my wheelhouse, but we usually like to see long stretches of blank walls broken up in some way with architectural features.
Yeah,
Even in the industrial park.
Even, yes, and not that they have to have windows or doors or anything, but the board has supported in the past some material changes or color changes or sort of little features along those wall lengths to help break up the long facades. Other than that, I don't believe I have any additional comments on the application. We talked about the waiver, we talked about updating some of the owner information, excuse me. Any other concerns from board members? Thoughts?
So, Mr. Chair, if there's nothing else, I'd like to move to table this application to, review of this application to the September 3rd meeting.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jim. Any additional discussion on the motion? Motion to continue application review to the September 3rd meeting. Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to continue.
Thank you.
Does the board feel a site walk isn't appropriate for this project? Would they like to see anything in person? I got one no, two no's. No? Okay. All right, with that, Shannon, we've, in the past as well, on similar reviews, we've given the applicant direction, and we have also still moved to schedule the public hearing on that same date. If the board would like, we could do that here as well.
Yes, if the board is comfortable making that decision, that's definitely an option. And is the suggested motion for the board in the memo?
Move to schedule a public hearing on this for September 3rd, the same date as the application completeness review.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. So motion made to schedule a public hearing for September 3rd on this item. Those in favor, Matt?
Yes. Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to schedule public hearing for September 3rd. All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
So, continuing here quickly to, for our process here, item 5I. This is 872 Portland Road, map 60, lot 9, map 61, lot 1-1, and this is for a new Volkswagen dealership with associated site improvements. This is a continued public hearing and continued application review for site plan and conditional use. This is in the Portland Road zoning district. Shannon, do you have anything to add on this item?
No, I don't have much to add on this item, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. The applicants with us here this evening, thank you for bearing with us. Would you like to give us a brief update?
Good evening, everyone. How are we? Yeah, happy to give you guys an update. Last time we spoke, we were all on site. I believe July 29th was that date. We had some good back and forth. Hopefully, you guys got a great perspective for what the site is. Since then, we've sat down with staff and further discussed what that packed Route 1 corridor project really is looking to do and get a better understanding of how this project can align with some of those goals. As such, we've started conversations with both abutters. Currently, the applicant is really looking to keep their access points as they are and currently proposed. They don't really have a right title interest to the access point to what could be a potential project that may or may not move forward, both adjacent to it and a school project that also may or may not move forward on that site, at both of which are undefined timelines. We now understand a little bit better about the signal timing. I know that came up of where the signals may be proposed on Route 1. That would be down on by Flag Pond as part of that packed Route 1 corridor, and the study done by T.Y. Lin for the city, as well as just upgrades and timing for the light that already exists down at Spring Hill and Millbrook there. So really outside of the guise of where this is. So we are talking about potential access management to an adjacent site that may or may not do development in the future on an undefined timeline, and as well as aligning access to that for a future school that also may or may not go forward on an undefined timeline. So we are looking to we've started those conversations with the abutter. We've certainly been working with staff to have that. We have a few staff, we've had a thorough review of the plan set so far, and we're still working on response to comments and making sure we are diligent in our response to both some great engineering comments and general site comments we had for the plan set. We'd like to bring that back to the board, bring the project back to the board once we've had a chance to really establish those review comments and continue to vet out that access point and make sure that both staff and the applicant are on board with that direction. I'd certainly look to, if you'd had a few moments, any of your feedback as it relates to that project as well.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time? I myself, I didn't have anything to add beyond the comments that we had during our site walk. A lot of the things that you've been working on that you mentioned, comments from city staff and the engineer. So I didn't have anything to add specifically right at this moment. Not sure if other board members had any thoughts. So perhaps for this evening, we can open the public hearing. I guess we can open the public hearing, and then we can continue the public hearing and application review to probably most appropriately, Shannon, the September 3rd meeting.
Yes, I think September 3rd would probably be the most appropriate, because it sounds like the applicant has some material that he wants to get to the board.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move to open the public hearing for 872 Portland Road.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff.
I'll second.
Thank you for the second, Carolyn. Any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I will vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to open the public hearing. If there are any members of the public here this evening that would like to speak on this item, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will answer all questions the best we can at the conclusion.
Mr. Chair, seeing no members of the public coming forward, I move to continue the public hearing to the September 3rd meeting.
Second?
Thank you for the motion and second, Joyce and Jeff. Any discussion? Those in favor of continuing the public hearing to the September 3rd meeting? Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0.
I appreciate everyone taking the time to take this up tonight and actually open up the public hearing for the project as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, additionally, if we could have a motion to continue application review to the September 3rd meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Matt. Any additional discussion? Those in favor of continuing the application review for 872 Portland Road to the September 3rd meeting? Matt?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie Lynn?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to continue the application review.
See you all then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, our last few items here, Shannon, if you have any info for us, we have any general correspondences?
I do not know of any general correspondences to share with the board at this moment.
All right, thank you. Any?
Oh, sorry. Lisa just reminded me that we have plans for Roma Joe's and the 13th Amendment to Park North that everyone should sign before they leave.
Great, thank you. And any department updates or discussions?
I guess the only update that I have is that a neighborhood meeting's going to be held tomorrow. And of course, I forget what address it's for, so hold on one moment. Oh, it's for Cloverleaf Phase 2. So that will be happening tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you. And any board comments, concerns, questions? No? All right, well, with that, we will move to adjourn at 9:37 p.m. Thank you, everyone.